It's time to learn how to interact with the IRS. How should you do that? Well, obviously professionally and politely, but I'm sure you knew that already. Let's talk about more specifics, what you need to know for the exam. We're going to have tax positions. Right? Should you be confident in the advice you give to a client? Well, of course you should, but we'll dive into that and much more. We're going to talk about audits. What happens if your client or you get audited? What's the appeals and judicial process for fighting against the IRS? Yeah, hopefully, if you do have to encounter that, you win. All the best to you. Let's dive into what we got for our learning objectives. Now, first off, we're going to want to summarize the requirements for the appropriate disclosure of a federal tax return position. We're going to see that there are, obviously, within the tax return and everything you submit, there are going to be items that are not black and white. And that was my biggest eye-opener when I started working in tax is I thought it was pretty straightforward. It's either you can do something or you can't. But there is so much within tax that is just a massive gray area. Should you take extra deductions? Is that a good decision? Will the IRS stand by that? Has someone else before you done that, and can you get away with it? I could go into it so much. It's crazy how much there is that is a gray area. So we're going to talk about tax positions. Is it reasonable to expect that you would that the IRS would agree with what you did? We're going to talk about that. It's a whole thing. I mean, you could tell I'm just like, wow, fascinated, right? Getting so excited about all this tax stuff. We also want to identify situations in which the disclosure of federal tax positions is required. We're going to see when you have to actually do that. We want to identify whether substantiation is sufficient in a given scenario. Did you put a $10,000 expense as a deduction for your business and, well, you shouldn't have? I mean, substantiation. Do you have enough support? Do you have your receipts? Do you have any evidence that this was a legitimate expense? We want to explain the audit and appeals process as it relates to our tax matters. If you get audited, what happens if at the end of the audit you both agree, you and the IRS agent? Cool, wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. If not, there's a whole process. We're going to kind of deal with the courts and understand what the appeals process is there. We also want to explain the different levels of the judicial process. As we will see, there's many different courts, and you're going to have to memorize the order with which you'll interact with them if you kind of do go through this whole legal process. And we want to understand, again, the appeals process, judicial process. Well, you can go to the courts, but then if the courts side against you, you have the right to appeal. We'll kind of go through that as well. And then lastly, the hierarchy of the authority for federal tax purposes. We've got different tax standards and different periodicals and sources. What should you listen to? Well, obviously, the Internal Revenue Code is the tip-top sort of rule book out there. But the IRS's Internal Revenue Code doesn't particularly address every specific niche situation. That's why we have courts to interpret the law. I mean, that goes well past even tax law. That's just how the law works. Yes, we've got specific laws written out, but within that, there are, there's 370 million people and growing in this country. So guess what? We've got a lot of different ways that people can interpret the law and do things and discovering something new every day. Well, with that, those are our learning objectives. Let's dive in, see what we got, and have a great time while doing so. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of cpa.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.